This is the most challenging track in California.
Yeah.
I think on the West Coast, this is the hardest track. It's the one that requires the most testicular fortitude and technical ability. 720 versus the 675.
Right.
What's the GT3 versus the GT3RS?
Exactly. In the same track, same day for these cars, but in general, same conditions, so you can get a comparison. I just figured out how to eat Nutella in this car, man.
I love everything about the car.
Yeah. We're here at SONOMA Raceway. Sears Point is what it used to be called. This is where Turn 1 Track Club and SimRaceway is, and it's a school that me and CJ are part of, or we call each other Doc Dog and Race Dog. You know, you come here, you're a member, and you get to go on track multiple days a year. I mean, we talked about from day one, like, you know, when we first hatched this idea of throttle dogs, this was kind of our ultimate goal, right? Right. This is not something that we went out and got tires especially for this track day.
These aren't the cheater
No,
tires.
This is what you're going to get when you get the car.
Right.
And I think that's the whole point of our lap sessions here. The lap dog, so to speak, is to get one lap by you in the same track, same day for these cars, but in general, same conditions, so you can get a comparison, a general comparison. We're going to argue, people are going to argue about this, that, and the other, the tire pressures and all this stuff.
No, they won't. People won't argue.
Whether you...
On the internet? What? What? I'm CJ. I've been driving on track. I'm a track addict. I've been driving on track since 2006. I've been racing since 2008. I've raced in a couple different countries and a couple different types of cars, from like prototypes like the LMP3 car right there to Pikes Peak, which I did this year as my first rally.
Yeah.
I survived. No dying. That's good. Spoiler alert.
It's always good.
It's always good.
And I'm Rich Ha, and we actually met through the internet.
But that's not a joke.
That's not a joke, no.
That's his actual last name.
That's my actual last name, Rich Ha. And you know, I'm not anywhere close to level CJ is. I went through racing school. I did the Skip Barber Racing School with their open wheel cars. I started tracking here. I became a member of the club, and I really started liking it. And we kind of met through Instagram, and we decided to do the Throttle Dogs thing. You came up with the name. We have a podcast out that's on iTunes and Spotify if you guys want to check it.
Tons of episodes, dozens of episodes.
Dozens of episodes where we talk about stupid stuff and
we keep
important
it real.
stuff.
We keep it real, I think.
We definitely
and
keep
that's
it
what's
real.
Important. And I got started actually doing a school here at the in F3 cars, which are, you know, they have some of those over here, like the number 12 car over there. That was actually how I started about 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago. And I came here, drove this track here at Sonoma, or SimRaceway as they call it now, and was blown away by the experience of the elevation changes. And to me, this is the most challenging track in California.
Yeah.
I think on the West Coast, this is the hardest track. It's the one that requires the most testicular fortitude and technical ability and memory, because you have to really know like where to put the car and all that stuff. So, so Turn 1 Club, and this is where we have members that can store their cars, and we're both members. And so they've kindly allowed us to film, and then we're going to do what we think is pretty cool, is to put all the cars up against each other and note the conditions and the other aspects of the car, and put them up on a board and say, hey, this is what these cars actually do relative to each other. With me driving, my level is only here, and the car's levels are here, but it's not Randy Popes or one of these super pro guys. I'm a representative of a high-level, fast amateur driver, I guess you could call it, the amateur racer guy. So. Seen you forever.
Yeah, it's been
I finally met Raz, you know, it's like the famous Raz. So.
I got you a gift, by the way.
Dude, that's awesome.
I've got my Alpine Stars sponsorable track. So our lap dogs can be sponsored by somebody. The space is available here and here for rent. If you want to just, we're going to do a Kickstarter. If you want to get a part of this, let me know. And the idea is just to get as many passes as possible when the track is ideal, and then just get familiar right now with a couple of the cars that I haven't driven yet, like the GT3, the 18. You know, I guess this is party time.
Yeah, and one pro tip. Race Dog actually went and used the restroom right before, because you don't want to have a bladder full.
track.
This is correct. You want to be evacuated as far as possible.
Correct.
The other pro tip is make sure that you can fit in your race suit, and I'm barely there. I've been carbon up too much. This is just a reminder that I'm not a professional driver, because if I was a professional driver, this thing would be baggy on me.
Dude, you said that you brought some race suits for me, man. I don't know how the hell I would fit in any of your race suits.
Oh, I got a couple over there. So.
I love this car. So I spec this car out with deviated yellow stitching, yellow seat belts, and the 918 carbon bucket seats. So as you can see, we're running a classic configuration. So this racetrack, they run different configurations. They run like classic, which is kind of, you have what's called the fast S's. They run an IndyCar configuration, which is basically the Indy cars come down the back straight, and they run the NASCAR configuration as well. He's driving my car, I'm like really nervous right now. It's like, I only have 500 miles on that car, and I'm like watching him, he's like right behind the Ford GT.
Ready, set, go. Turn 1, huge balls, but I chickened out. I lifted a little bit through the middle of the apex. You know, I was really setting up for turn 2. That downshift there is crucial. As you're coming through turn 2 and turn 3, you have to really be ahead of the car, because the rear steering is a little bit unsettling if you're not used to it. As you're coming up the hills, you get a lot of grip, but as you're going over the top of the crest, then the car gets a little light. You're gonna see corrections all over the place here. Going downshifting into 4, the rear steering kind of works its way around, and you're gonna see little corrections, just because I'm not really totally sure on this car, first time I've ever driven it, what it's gonna give me. But one of the best parts of this track in this GT3 is actually the downhill carousel. It just has so much grip that you constantly start adding throttle, and it just plants the right tires down, and you just feel so much grip into the car. The straightaway obviously is, you know, pretty straightforward. Then you got to try to brake deep, but you really don't want to skid the car in there, because you want to be able to get a really good drive out going through the S's. The S's are a huge critical section in a fast car, because every tenth you lift through here, you're going to be terribly slow everywhere else. You can't make up for the fact that a fast corner has to be fast, and I think that's the biggest thing about the S's. You have to take them fast. You have to work your way up to the speed. But the GT3 is great. The rear steering here really helps you a lot. Turn 10 is sketchy in any car, because you're going to be going faster the more grip it has. And there's just a weird visual of a 15-foot wall on your left as you're, you know, in 4th or 5th gear. Downshifting there into 2nd for the last little hairpin, trying to get the rear to really work, rotate around so you can power out. And you know, you're just pulling gears here all the way up into turn 1, and that's a lap at Sonoma. It turns way, way, way better than most 911s, because it's got the rear steering, you know what I mean? It's livelier. It feels more like the 911R than the last one did. The car digs. It's got really good grip coming out of the corners, and you just have to really play the squat. Like the last S before you get to the big curve, that right-hander, if you like come off the throttle a little bit, coming off that left, then it's like, and it just wants to kind of walk, and then you have to correct it, and then you end up driving. And that's what the guy did. He lifted while the car was on a load going over the hill, and as soon as he got down the hill, it just washed out, and that's why he ended up kind of track left, because I kind of like showed him that I was there. I did one of these, you know.
The cup holders here kind of suck. They're mounted high, so the center of gravity is high, so when you're driving, it sloshes all over the place. It spills over your Porsche media center, which actually sounds pretty good, surprisingly. I mean, I guess I could do it. You know, I guess I could like get some breadsticks or something in there, but it's not very good at that. So I would say this fails the Nutella test. It's my car, I love it, but it fails the Nutella test. This is the width of a Carrera 4. It's not as wide as the RS. It's kind of in between Kim Kardashian and no butt. You've got a nice kind of balance, and I think that's perfect for me. CJ, he likes the wide ass, so that's his car.
Get on the key on that one.
Hey, what happened to the mirror? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, that's cool.
I've actually never eaten Nutella in this car. It sounds crazy, but I have not. Probably because I know it won't work. So first of all, this car is not easy to get in and out of. It's got a wide sill. It's not like the 720 that has a lower sill and a cutout. So you kind of have to fall into the car. There's 2 cup holders down here in the corner. That's definitely not Nutellable because I can't really put it anywhere. You can put it in the side seat, but there's this hole. That actually may work. I just figured out how to eat Nutella in this car, man. Look at this. So we're gonna put this Nutella right in that hole. There we go. See, we learned on Throttle Dogs that the 675LT has a built-in Nutella holder. It is Nutellable. So this is the car I've had for a while. I love it. It's a great car. It's actually very daily drivable. You know, the only thing is that this car door opens way wide, so you have to be careful where you park it next to.
The 675 is one of my favorite cars of all time, and here we are in a lap at Sonoma.
Ready, set, go!
Big difference with the 675 is the car's a lot flatter. You don't get any rear steering in here, so it's just whatever you're doing with your hands. You have to be really handsy to get everything done. You really have to work the front end hard. But the car has a lot more confidence going through the fast stuff because it's flatter, especially turn 1. Turn 3 is really fast because you can just really see the whole thing. The visibility is great. You sit super low in the seat. That being said, you are going to get a little bit of the same thing in every fast car, which is that the rear is going to cause you to kind of do this dance between planting with your right foot and gliding with your right foot. You know, the carousel here, I think, is probably where the hydraulic suspension and the hydraulic steering are the strongest combination out of any car here. It's the lowest ride height, and you can just launch the car through there, and you just get so much grip and load, and you know exactly what the car is doing. On the brakes, I would say when you get all the way down in there, you can brake a little bit deeper than you can in the GT3, but the big thing is powering out. You have to be really light on your foot because if you hammer it, the car will pitch sideways here. I am driving with some TC on with ESC dynamic because I don't want to wad Rich's car up into a tire wall, but the S's through here is awesome. When you turn in, you turn in and put a little bit of brake on after the turn in on the first S to get the car to rotate and kind of squat at the same time. Turn 10 is rad because you're just launching the car through here. You're probably 10 or 12 miles an hour faster in the McLaren than you are in the GT3. But through here, the car works a little bit harder and it pushes. I can't really get down to the apex as easily in the LT as I can in the RS because I don't have the rear steering. The power coming out is great of every exit, but I still feel like there was more in the tank, and I kind of, you know, I probably could have done maybe another second faster in the LT. I have mechanical sympathy for these cars. Noise,
Yeah.
steering,
Yeah.
transmission, horsepower, chassis control, lack of roll, seating position. I love everything about the car.
Yeah.
The 675 to me is still, it's the gold standard for these mid-engine supercars.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. These are the 2 yardsticks, you know?
Yeah.
Not only great colors, obviously,
Right.
and specs, it really just has so much ability to work towards the edge.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't scare you on the way there.
Right.
It gives you confidence. And then when you maybe get a little bit to the edge, there's part of the car that's engineered to like make sure that you don't end up at the tire barrier.
Right.
Same thing, I drove with ESC on right there.
Yeah.
And I was just starting to kind of work my way to aero mode, ESC off, all that stuff, because I wanted to try to get a feel for the car before I started. You know, you have to make sure you check all the boxes before
Right.
you get to the final boss.
Talk about the difference in approaching these 2 cars, because clearly one's a rear engine and the other
Right.
one is not, you know?
You know, this car feels like it's got a little bit more tire. That's the difference. I think maybe because when you brake, so much more of the weight comes forward.
Yeah.
You get so much more surge from the rear engine and the kind of empty trunk.
Yeah.
So that gives you a little bit more confidence to hammer the brakes.
I see.
Because this thing, since it's mid-engine, it never really gets out of balance. But because of that, you can't really provoke it to get all the way on the nose.
Right.
And at least for me, I didn't want to get to the point where I was smashing the brakes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the McLarens are better glide cars.
Yeah.
As opposed to like point and shoot. And the
Right.
Porsche is really a good point, pivot, and shoot car.
Right.
In a track like this, it's safer to point, pivot, and shoot than it is to float. You know, if you try to float too much speed in this thing, it's hard to recover because the way to think about it is any recovery that you do is going to take you offline.
Right.
So if you're on the edge, and you have to correct, you're gonna go off.
Yes.
I mean, this thing feels so much more confident going through the fast, high-speed stuff.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like it's a little bit more balanced. So, like for instance, coming through the fast S and then into the brakes and then into the right-hander on this back part here, I was easily carrying more speed and deeper and more confident on the throttle in this than I was in that. I was trying to tick off little bit by little bit, but if we had like a full day, then I think that this is like a 43 car.
Yeah, I think you were headed that way because literally on your third lap, you'd already been down to 147.
Right.
So you were headed.
And then I had to back off a little bit. I was on a really good lap after that, and had to back off because I was closing on the guy, and if I kept it up at speed, I was probably going to plow to the back of him halfway up turn 1, which is that's a yard sale.
Right.
Carbon everywhere. For you, having put 500 miles on this car now, how is it actually to live with?
I love it. I mean, to live with, it's a great car, man. Like, because the one thing is that if you have a car that you just stick into a garage and you don't drive it very often, it's cool. You have it, right?
But it's just a possession.
Right. Whereas this, I drive it every day to work, and you get out of work and you get into the car and you just feel like it's a special car.
One of the big complaints that people had when they first came out with McLarens was that they were too hard to get in. The roofline was so low and the door sill was so high that you had to wedge in there like a Cirque du Soleil performer for the trapeze act. McLaren has figured out that they do have a lot of big, tall clients or just, you know, guys with a bad hip or something like that. And it's easier to step into the car this way and get down like this and just kind of plop into the car. And you can do that because you have this whole cutout here. So that's a big element, I think, of the improvement. Also, this door sill being lower helps a lot of people get in and out. And then, you know, people that are wearing skirts don't give the full Paris, as they like to say. But the 720 for me is one of the coolest cars, and it's approachable and it's obtainable. You don't have to play any games. You can go straight to the McLaren dealer and say, I want a 720, new or used, pick out a color. They have 500 colors. So that's what I like about these.
CJ is like this, you know, Major League Baseball pitcher, so you can get into it easy. The Nutella, there you go. It passes the Nutella test. I did not expect it to. I'm used to the 675LT, which seems a little more tight. This seems a lot more airy. The car has B&W speakers. This is a lot better than the Meridian crap that we had in the LT. And I'm sorry to Meridian because they make good stuff, but the B&W speakers here are much, much better than Meridian. If you're driving this as a daily, you're eating your Nutella and not spilling all over your car, and you're listening to some Mozart, it's legit. It's not my car, so do what you gotta do.
Okay, I see how it is.
Ready, set, go.
Big expectations from the 720S. The 720S has more horsepower, but it has some limitations on it. And right here through turn 1, you start to feel it right away. There's a little bit more ride height, and the steering's a little bit lighter. Because the steering's a little bit lighter, you're not as confident in it going through some of the faster corners. But through the medium speed corners, the hydraulic suspension is a little bit more refined, so it transfers weight better than the 675LT. Right through here, coming into turn 4 though, I'm telling you, the nose bites in heavy, and then you see you feel a lot of correction that you have to make through the rear. Through the fast sweeper right-hander right there, you're really like looking for grip because you want to go to power because you see so much road ahead of you. You just don't have enough. You just don't have enough tires or don't have enough downforce or whatever it is through that part. The car's biblically fast. It's crazy fast, but at the same time, you have to be gentler with this than you do with the 675 because the 675 stays flatter. Through the S's, I was a little bit intimidated in this first right-hander here because I wasn't sure where it was going to pitch me onto the left. This really big fast sweeper is nice because then you get a really nice long phase of acceleration through here, and then as you're working it back to the left, you don't really have to do much with your hands. You can just kind of steer one direction and then hold a nice increasing throttle through there. It's really good through all the medium angle corners, but the tighter corners it actually rotates better than the 675. You're on the nose of the car here, you really get it all the way down to the apex, and then you just slam the gas and you come out of here fast. I think the hardest thing here is figuring out okay, if this is my fast lap, how can I go faster? There's a little bit less confidence in the 720 just because it's a little bit more unknown, whereas the 675 lets you know you're at the limit a lot easier.
How'd it feel?
Just like overpowering the tires everywhere. Only have like a couple laps in each car. It's difficult to gauge like exactly how much, but I mean, this thing is like all slidey and stuff like that. I was trying to get the variable drift control to work and I couldn't get it to engage. So I was kind of like stuck in nanny mode. This thing is so freaking fast coming out of the corners.
Yeah.
But it just feels like it's much looser and like more comfortable than the LT. The LT feels a little bit more focused on this is where it's supposed to be. This doesn't necessarily feel like a full-on track attack, you know? It's the easiest to drive, but then the faster you go, then the more it reminds you that it's not really, you don't really have full control. This is like a wolf dog hybrid. Like it still lets you know, motherfucker, my mom was a wolf. I'm first generation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I raised on the streets. It actually, because it's got so much more torque, you can short shift when you're like mid corner, so you roll the exit a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because like coming out of the carousel, the 720 has more power than it really needs, you know? And so you just pull forth a little bit early and then you just roll through there and then you still get to, you steamroll all the way into the braking zone, you know? But I think there's a couple places like the brakes are a little bit more vague on this than they are in the LT. Yeah. The LT feels more like immediate impact, bam, and then you're down, you're going through the gears. Whereas this thing going into the back there, I didn't feel like I could get the actual same kind of brake pressure. So,
how do you compare it to like the GT3 in terms of looseness?
It almost feels like it has rear steering.
Really?
That's how loose it feels.
Wow.
Like this thing, it feels super loose right now. But the thing is, you can put the power all the way down in the GT3, and then you're not like, there's no drama, there's no wheel spin. Like this thing is like, no sir, you're not allowed to have all that power. Like it pulls power, you know, it goes through that. This car's carry rolling speed through the high speed stuff is better, but the GT3 is easier to park and pivot. Because if you're like doing this in this car, you're slowing down a lot, and I was doing that too much. I was over driving a little bit. Yeah. Typically the Porsche, you have to cross your hands almost, you know, 2 or 3 times a lap, and that's how you have to like provoke like the rear to come out. Whereas this one, it's almost like if you can do it without having to correct, that's your fastest lap. Because you said the fastest lap I did that you timed was basically it was me just saying, okay, let me dial it back a little bit. Yeah. You know?
How fast did you get up on this car? I mean, we were talking about that too while you're on track.
Wasn't even looking.
Wasn't even looking?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's too many elements
going on,
moving around, for me to really look down. All I know is that the entry to the left in the S's was fast as shit, and it was uncomfortable. This thing, dude, going into that last left before the big right, you're like, I don't know about that. But then the fast sweeper, the nice long easy sweeper, super fine. You're in 5th gear in this thing, just fully wound out. You know, like 90% throttle, 5th gear. So at COTA, a big MotoGP or a Grand Prix F1 style track, the top end on this will be better than any of the other ones, easily. But how long are you going to be able to keep doing that same lap before you degrade the tires because you're spinning them out of control, or you're roasting the rears because you're trying so hard, you know what I mean? So.
All right, Race Dog. So
this is the new Race Dog mobile.
There's a fire extinguisher between CJ's legs.
Yeah, I like to keep protection between my legs at all times. The new RS, there's not a lot inside indicating you're in a new one versus a 16. Inside, it's really the same thing. It's all, you know, the lightweight stuff and everything like that. But when you're driving the car, you feel a distinct difference. The transmission shifts differently, for sure.
You know what else I can tell? Is that in my GT3, the wing goes right in the middle of the
You can't see anything.
So I can't tell if a cop's behind me or not.
That's the thing that's nice about the Touring, is you have no impediments, right, behind you. And the RS, it's actually the opposite problem. The wing is so high, you can see underneath it. Right. Which is kind of cool. But yeah, you know what's weird about the 911 that you don't really get until you sit in it? There's a shit ton of room back there.
Yes.
Like from a roadworthiness standpoint, obviously, like, say what you will about sound absorption, but there's a lot of room back there to pack soft bags and to take stuff where you could actually like go on a legit road trip in a GT3RS.
That car looks so sick. It's like, but that car is a V6 turbo. This car actually sounds pretty good. It has a titanium Akapovic exhaust. So if you're asking me who I'm talking to, I'm looking up at the sky. It's not God, it's Raz.
Oh no, you're talking to God.
All right, the RS, this one is a little bit, I would say, more forced in a way because this is my personal car, so it's easier for me to kind of push this and justify that. You can see it from the helmet cam that there's a lot of action. I'm driving the car probably a little harder. This is the end of the day where I would say the lap itself, the track was probably, you know, a little bit slower, a little bit greasier, but I'm pushing hard here. I'm really trying to get the car to bite. I'm trying to get the front end to work, so I'm just really sawing at the wheel. The steering's a little bit lighter in the RS versus the 675, but they're very similar. I'd say these are the two most similar cars in the whole test, even more so than the GT3 and the RS, just because of the suspension. Turn 4 and this fast right sweeper coming into the carousel, you're really just trying to get the rear to set so you can go as much power as possible. You feel like you're gonna get a little bit light coming over the hill, but then as you're coming down the hill, you get that increasing grip and you can really put the car wherever you want to put it. The rear steering on this one feels like a huge evolution over the 16, which made the car feel nervous most of the time, but this, I think they've tuned it so it feels great everywhere, especially the hairpins. This is the real separator for the RS. GT3s and 911s always used to have a hard time through turns like that because you'd have to like throw your hands across and you slap your wrists together. But through the fast stuff and the slow stuff, you feel the rear steering working, doing both different things. You don't really feel like there's a lot of downforce through here. I mean, I would always want more downforce and going through the S's in any car. I've never said, oh, I want the car loser through here. But the RS, you feel a lot more grip than the GT3, and I think that's what allows you to carry 5 or 6 miles an hour of apex speed through there. But the biggest thing on the whole track is these kind of, you know, late apex hairpins, and you just manhandle the car through there. It's really, really, really easy to drive, especially with the PDK, and the new PDK is incredible. The new tuning and stuff on it is great, so that's a lap at Sonoma. I went over the little hill before you go down the big hill, and I got the dreaded ABS ice mode. You put pedal pressure in, and then you get a rock, and there's no travel, and then nothing happens, and you feel like ABS go in on the initial hit, which is really scary because you need to slow down there, otherwise you go straight off into the wall. So I was able to like slow down just enough because it just happened in the last phase of the braking. So I slowed down a little bit, and then I just upshifted to kill the engine and turned in. Down the hill, down the carousel. Yeah. I was supposed to scrub off 15 miles an hour more speed than it let me. And I was like, oh shit! But that's a sort of notorious thing about ceramics that happens sometimes. Really? So I think I just need to put better brake fluid in there perhaps. That thing is a beast, oh my God. That sounds incredible, dude. Dude, the transmission's freaking unbelievable. It's a little bit more torque, which is, you know, you get obviously, but it gets a little tuning or whatever. But the fact that like the car has just a little bit more aero, and the suspension is better. So it keeps you planted so that when you're going through like the downhill part, you don't feel the car like giving up. Yeah. It just goes like, it just squats and it like kind of like leans into the corner. You got a little purple. Alrighty, the titanium exhaust in purple. Yeah. Yeah. The RS has a titanium exhaust, and all titanium exhausts, usually they turn color purple if you're actually driving it hard enough. Yeah, so if like there's the LT. Right, if there's an LT or an RS, any car that has a titanium exhaust and it's not purple, they're just parade lapping it.
We'd like to unveil the official Throttle Dogs Lapdog leaderboard.
What to expect in the future YouTubes? We're going to have other cars coming on. Probably going to have a Senna, a Ford GT on track, the KTM Crossbow, as well as the back mono on track to get those times on. We will have a Ferrari 488 Pista Perta on track. So we're going to have all these cars on track to compare to and review, and it's in our own way. With your guys' support, we're going to be able to do them, and I'm pretty excited for the future of the Throttle Dogs.